Hello again and welcome back. I'm sorry it's been such a long time since I've been able to post a video. A few months ago we were blessed to have another healthy baby boy join our family. So life's been a bit hectic as we've gotten used to having two children to look after. And I've also been quite busy working on the house, redecorating and laying new flooring. So I've not had much time to be out in the garage, and when I have had time my garage has been quite a mess, so I haven't had the space in order to work on any projects. But as I'm waiting for some new doors to be delivered and to be fitted, I have some time to work on a project, and so without any further ado I'll let you see what is on the lathe and what I'll be working with. Okay, so I have here a large blank of elm that came from that elm tree that I was lucky enough to get quite a lot of wood from. I believe it was the end of August last year, so it's been drying for over a year now. Once I cut it into halves to remove most of the pith, I sealed the open faces with wax to assist the drying. But it's had over a year now, and while I was roughing this round it all seemed really quite dry, so I'm happy enough to continue to turn this away to the finished project. At the moment it's roughly 10 inches in diameter at the widest point and about 6.5 inches tall. That will change as I clean up this top face here, so there's a bit of a crack on one side, but I'm hoping that once I have turned this away to what I plan to do with it, that should hopefully be eliminated. But the plan I have for this, as it is around Halloween time, is I'd like to make a Halloween decoration. So I'm going to try and turn this and carve it out to be a bit like a jack-o'-lantern. So I'm going to turn it into the rough shape of a pumpkin, have a lid for it, hollow out the inside, and then I plan to cut a spooky kind of face in the front of it, so I can put some kind of light in the inside, and it will be quite a nice little decoration for this time of year. And I can probably do something like this every year and eventually have a nice little family of jack-o'-lanterns to decorate the house with. So I spent a little time off camera just roughing this round. It started off quite a large rough blank, and so to save a bit of time I've roughed it round to see what it looks like. And the wood looks like it's going to be really quite nice. There's some really nice grain in this piece of elm, so I'm excited to see what it looks like when it's finished. But what I'm going to plan on doing first is clean up the bottom, cut a mortise and do a bit of the rough shape on the back, so that I'll be able to turn it around, mount it in the jaws of the chuck, finish the shape off and get it ready to the point of hollowing it. So we'll get to that point and see how it looks then. Okay, I'll stop for a moment to explain what I've done so far. I've started to make a cut for what will be the mortise, and I'm leaving the nub on the inside there so that I can continue to apply pressure from the tailstock while I'm doing the initial turn around the edge, as there's quite a lot of mass in this blank. I'm not sure of its exact weight, but it is quite a substantial piece of wood right now. And it's only a very small faceplate with 4 screws that is holding it on here. So I'll use the skew now to cut this a bit deeper and set the dovetail on the inside for going onto my large bowl gripper jaws, and then I'll reapply pressure with the tailstock to hold it in place while I refine around this edge here. I won't remove that nub until I'm ready to sand and apply some finish to the bottom, ready to reverse the wood and start to work on the top of it. My rhino scraper isn't giving me as clean cuts as I'd really like, so I'm going to give my homemade negative rake scraper a try and see how well it can clean up the bottom of this bowl. The negative rake scraper has done a much better job at tidying up the surface here. There is still a little bit of breakout on the end grain, which from my experience is typical with elm anyway, as it's quite a fibrous wood to work with. But overall I've got quite a nice smooth texture off of there ready for sanding. I'll just have to spend a bit longer on the lower grits to work on the end grain to remove that tear out. But what I plan to do now is try and work out the overall shape of this pumpkin. So I'll make some cuts up at the top here to set the height of the pumpkin, leaving enough space to cut eyes and a mouth and a nose for the face. And I'll leave an inch or so of material at the top, as I want to use the same wood to make the lid. So once I've got the shape around, I'll go in with the parting tool, and I think I'll form a tenon on the top. I'll clean up this face, the top face. I'll cut a tenon and I'll part that off, and I'll turn the lid later once I've cut the opening for the top of the pumpkin. I think I'll do that once I've reversed it around, but I'll get the initial shape first and then I'll flip it around. I was just setting up to make those cuts that I was speaking about, and noticed that my tool rest is only 8 inches long. I don't generally turn bigger items, so I haven't bought a longer tool rest yet. So I can't get the tool rest far enough round to the left in order to start to make those cuts to shape the pumpkin. So what I'm going to do is sand and finish just the bottom here. I'm only going to use oil as a finish anyway. So I'll sand and oil the bottom so that I can revolve it around, mount it in the mortise, and that will allow me to carry on with what I have planned. Alright, I have it sanded up to 320 now. I don't feel the need to go any further than that, as it's already basically just started burnishing the wood. It's got quite a nice natural shine to it now. So I'm going to apply a quick coat of oil or two Usually I'd apply the oil with paper towel, but I don't have any right now, so I'm just going to use a small cloth rag. Okay, that's the first coat of oil. First impressions is that this is one gorgeous piece of elm. I'm really excited to get the rest of this turned and get it finished up and some oil on it. It's got some really quite nice character to the grain. A really nice bit coming down here through the centre, and quite nice figuring at the end grain as well. So I'll let this coat of oil cure for a little while, then I'll come back and burnish it again and give it another coat of oil, and then I'll flip it around. Alright, I have the blank reverse now, so again, like before, the first thing I want to do is to true up this face, and that will allow me to turn a small tenon on the top, so that when I start to cut the shape that I want for the actual pumpkin, I'll be able to part off what is left with the top and use that as a lid once I have cored out the inside of the main body. So true this up quickly and form that tenon, and then we can start working on the shape. Okay, so I've just parted off the top of this blank, which will become the lid of this pumpkin. What I'll do now before I hollow out is take some finishing cuts with my negative rake scraper just to tidy up the fibres, especially on the end grain around here, refine the overall shape. It's looking kind of pumpkin-like right now. It's about 10 inches in diameter and 5 inches high, which I'm pretty happy with. It'll be a nice decent sized ornament to this when it's finished. Most of this crack that was here has turned away as well. I might be lucky enough to reduce the severity of that with these last cuts I take as well. So I'll use the negative rake scraper to clean up and then take the initial core out the centre with a Forstner bit. Okay, I now have a 4-inch deep hole into this blank. And before I continue with the hollowing, the first thing I'm going to do is to enlarge this hole to just under the diameter of what will be the lid. I'll worry about shaping the lid once I have fully hollowed this out and left it for a few days. While boring out the hole, I could feel that there is still a little bit of moisture on these shavings that came out with the Forstner bit. So once I've hollowed it out, I'll leave it for a day or two just to acclimatise again, get rid of any residual moisture that is still in there, as that might distort the opening that will be left. That's why I want to leave it quite a bit smaller than what I'll have left here as well, so that if there is a lot of distortion, I should still have enough left over in order to bring it into round again and then fit this lid into it nicely. To do the hollowing on the inside, I'll be using the Robert Sorby Hollow Master, and I'll start just by working my way down to widen it to this outer rim all the way down, and then start taking undercuts, slowly working my way to the radius of the outside. Is now hollowed out. I think when it comes to editing this video together, I'll remove most of the hollowing footage, as for the most part you're only likely to see the back of my head. I can't really get an angle for you to see inside while I'm hollowing, and for me to still be able to see inside it as well. So apologies for that. But I've got it hollowed out fully inside and sanded and finished inside. And I also sanded and oiled the outside as well. So I'm ready to make a start on working on the lid. I'll turn and finish the lid, and then once I have this shaped, I'll mount the pumpkin back on the lathe and take a few cuts on the opening of the vessel, to allow for a nice tight fit for the lid to sit in there. Before I work on the lid, I do want to give this another coat of oil. I've got one coat on already which I left to soak in overnight, and it has raised the grain just ever so slightly, so I'm going to denib it with some 400 sandpaper and then give it another coat of oil and let it sit and soak in while I work on the lid. And I'll say now as well, originally I was planning on cutting some grooves in around the pumpkin to make it look like the segmentation of an actual pumpkin. That was my plan at the start, but having turned this and the amount of work that I spent on it and seeing just how nice the wood has turned out, I think I'm going to leave it without doing those grooves on it, as when the lights are off and there's a light inside this, once I've cut the face into it, you're not really going to be able to see that there are these grooves on it. I'd rather leave it so that when it's not being used with a light on the inside, then the character of the wood will speak for itself. I don't really want to deface it after the work that I've put into it so far. So I'm just going to oil it, and then once I've finished the opening, I'll wax it and it will be left as a nice decorative piece, but I'll still cut the face of a Janker lantern into the front of it so it can be used for that purpose. Okay, I have the piece for the lid chucked up now, and the turning of this will be fairly straightforward. First I want to true up and clean up this bottom face, and then put a slight bevel on the edge of the lid so that it will fit securely in the opening on top of the pumpkin. And I don't need to take too much off of there in order for it to fit well. Really, I just want to put the bevel on as I remove the torn grain from when this was cut off. Once I have that flat and this cleaned up, I'll sand and finish it, and then turn it around and mount it on my coal jaws in order to work on the top, as I want to create a small mortise on the top of the other side of the lid so that I can put in a contrasting stem on top of the lid as a handle for taking it off. I have the lid reversed on the coal jaws now, so it will be the same case as before. First I'll remove this tenon, and then I'll smooth off the top of the lid, and I'm going to put just a slight little indentation. It won't be perfectly flat, it will swoop in a bit, and then I'm going to bore a 3/4 hole, which will be a mortise for the stem that will come out as the handle. Right, I have the body of the lid nicely turned now. It's come out really well, it's really nice and smooth. I've got a very gentle taper down the side of it so that it will produce a nice tight fit in the body of the pumpkin. So the last thing for the lid is to make the handle, which will be like the stem coming off of a pumpkin. And I had a look through my scrap wood pile and found this really nice piece of walnut. I think it might be black walnut, not entirely sure, but it is walnut nonetheless, and it's got some really nice colouring down one side of it. There's some hints of red and purple in there as well. So I think this is going to make quite a nice handle for the top of this. And the reason I think that it will work well is there is this quite bad, I think it's been a knot or something in the wood. So what I think is going to end up happening is that when I'm roughing this round, this part is likely going to just break off, and if it does, I'll be happy with that because I'll be left with a nice natural edge at the top. I was thinking that I'd have to have just a clean edge coming off at an angle, but this would make a nice detail to it, having a natural edge at the top and make it look a bit more realistic as the stem of a pumpkin. So I'll mount this in the chuck, rough it round to start with, and then see what kind of shape comes out to me for the handle. So here we have the finished lid and handle. I haven't glued it in yet as I've just finished turning it, but just to let you see how it turned out. I realised pretty early on in the turning of the handle that I have little to no idea what the stalk of a pumpkin actually looks like, so I kind of just winged it, and I'm pretty happy with how it's turned out. I really quite like the little bit of natural edge at the top of it. I think it really sets it off. So I'm going to put some glue on this and let it go off, and once it's gone off for a few hours I'll start working on the final opening in the pumpkin. While the glue for the lid is drying, I've decided to work on cutting out the face of the pumpkin. So I've taken a little time to draw a bit of a guide. I'm not an artist by any means, I am pretty rubbish at drawing. So this will just be a sort of guideline as I try to cut this out. And I have a few methods in mind of how to actually do the cutting out. I think for the most part I'll bore holes to give me a starting point to either use a coping saw to cut out the bulk of what needs to come out, and then use a series of files to refine the edges. I didn't realise it, but the memory card was full halfway through cutting out this first eye, so apologies for that. But what you missed is I cut out the waste with the coping saw and then spent a little time with a series of rasps and files to bring it more to the guidelines that I put on there, and the more fine files I used to clean up the edges that were cut with the rasp. And it's looking not too bad just now for this first one, so I'll move on to doing the second eye and see how I get on with that. Right, that is the face carved out now. It's not 100% perfect, but I'm pretty happy with it overall. I haven't really done any carving before, so it was a bit foreign to me, but something that I might practice a bit more and see if I can get better at it for future projects. But for now, the last thing to do is to put it back on the lathe and to bring the opening on the top to fit the lid. And once I have done that, I'll give it one final coat of oil. Okay, the filming stopped pretty abruptly there. Last night, when I was turning the hole for the lid of this pumpkin, I think I had been out here for too long, as I was taking many small cuts to try to get a really good fit with the lid, and I got impatient and I took a bigger cut than really I should have at the time, and so I've been left with a lid that it goes inside the pumpkin. So last night I was pretty upset, so I just turned off the camera and went inside, and this morning the lid is able to actually sit there. If you hold it, if you place it just right, then it will actually sit there, and that's because the opening has warped ever so slightly. And that was something I was worried about happening anyway. Even if I had gotten this to fit perfectly, there was always the chance that the opening might deform and then the lid would never go in anyway. So although I was pretty annoyed that I made the mistake of cutting the opening too big, it has led to me thinking a bit more about it. And so I have an idea planned on how I can fix this to make the lid sit perfectly in there, and also to reinforce that opening so that it won't move with temperature or humidity as much. It probably always will, but it won't happen as much when I do what I have planned. But I'll do that in another video. I've spent quite a long time on this so far. You can kind of see how it's turned out so far. I'm really happy with it. I've not put a light inside it yet, as I want to save that for when it is actually fully done. But I'm pretty happy with the carving on the face, and I really like the handle for it as well, out of the walnut. So there'll be a follow-up video for this where I fix this. What I have planned to do is to take another piece of walnut, the same as the handle, and I'll increase the size of the opening, turn this round as a plug, drop it in and glue it in, and then turn a new hole for the lid. And so the only difference being is there'll be a contrasting walnut band to match the handle around the lid. And with this being kiln dried walnut, I'm hoping that by turning a fresh hole, gluing this in, then the fact that this is kiln dried and it's going to be less likely to move with heat or humidity, then it should hopefully reinforce the opening so that when I turn the new hole for the lid to sit in, then it should stay pretty stable and keep a tight fit on the lid, providing I'm able to actually be patient enough to turn it to fit perfectly. But I'll do that in another video. For now, thank you very much for watching. Thank you to all of my subscribers. And thank you to all of my new subscribers that have subscribed while I haven't been uploading. This will be the first new video that you'll have seen, and I hope you've enjoyed it as well. Please take the time to like this video and share it on any social media that you have, as it will help my channel continue to grow. And as always, thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.